Hello and welcome to the ICT Pulse podcast. I'm Michelle Marius, your host and the editor and publisher of ICT Pulse, the online platform where we discuss ICT issues from a Caribbean perspective. Welcome to another episode in our Know Your Neighbours series. Today, the country we will be exploring is Trinidad and Tobago. Located south of Grenada and northeast of Venezuela, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is the southernmost Caribbean island. Resource-rich with oil and natural gas, Trinidad and Tobago has been able to chart a different path from most of its Caribbean siblings, whose economies are primarily services-driven with a strong emphasis on tourism. But as many of us can attest to, based on the prices we pay for petrol and electricity, the oil market in particular is quite volatile. And so in recent years, Trinidad and Tobago has embarked on an economic diversification program. However, as with many things, with new opportunities come new challenges. To help us explore the telecoms and ICT space of Trinidad and Tobago, we're delighted to have Simon Fraser, chair of the Trinidad and Tobago Computer Society, a user group where computers, related technologies, and related social issues are discussed. Simon is also a lecturer in information systems at the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies. Simon, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Simon, let's just jump right in. And as much as I just gave like a 1 minute synopsis of Trinidad and Tobago, can you just shed some more light on the country for those who might not be familiar?
Well, as you said, we're just 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. So we can actually see Venezuela from several points on the western peninsulas. We are, as you said, very heavily dependent on hydrocarbons, oil, and in the recent decades, natural gas. But of course, we're struggling as, the global pandemic has reduced the demand for travel services. So natural gas prices, oil prices plummeted. Geographically, and this will become important, most of our population is in two corridors. One we call the East-West Corridor, which stretches from the Western Peninsula all the way up to a town called Sangre Grande. So there are two main roadways there, Eastern Main Road and I can't even remember the name of the highway. And I drive on it, so senior moment. But most of our population is along those two roads that kind of run east-west.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another corridor that kind of runs also from Port of Spain in the west in a crescent down towards Marabella, San Fernando, and Point Fortin.
Mm-hmm.
So when we speak about telecommunications, that concentration of population in those two corridors becomes important.
Right.
So, like everybody else, we're struggling with COVID-19, and we had back in March to make a huge shift online. Schools, businesses, the government, all of a sudden kind of had to discover how sound or unsound the telecommunications infrastructure was. I think it went fairly well. In Trinidad, where people were able to, with different levels of competence, shift online, and the infrastructure held up. There was a little hiccup a couple of weeks ago, but that was off island. So yeah, we're doing okay. We're struggling through it like everybody else.
Absolutely. So in terms of, I guess, from what you're saying, the East-West corridor and the one that runs from Port of Spain down, I guess, to the southern part of the country,
Mm-hmm.
this is where your population is concentrated. So I suspect that the coverage tends to be good in those areas. But what about, accessibility of services island-wide? And what about Tobago as well?
Okay, yeah. The coverage, and this is, I guess, is wireless as well as broadband,
Mm-hmm.
either fiber or copper cable TV. Within those two zones, it tends to be pretty solid. I think outside of those zones, there's still strong wireless coverage, but of course, as in anywhere else, there tend to be, people who live beyond the edge of the network. But in Trinidad, I would suspect that would be that's probably less than 10% of the total population.
Mm-hmm.
Tobago, the majority of the population is concentrated on the southwestern end of the island.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe coverage is okay there, and Tobago is connected to Trinidad via a submarine cable.
Yes.
But the ability to get onto the internet and to use it is a function of course, the availability of network services as well as the affordability of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've lost a lot of jobs from all over the economy. So I think even though internet services might be available in most parts of the island, people are struggling to pay their internet bills to afford connecting to the internet.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are relying on their mobile devices to get connected, which is fine if you are WhatsApping and checking Facebook. But to do 5 or 6 hour sessions of online classes, that will burn through your mobile data allocation pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask. So, for example, at the University of the West Indies, what is your sense in terms of how students are accessing the internet? Because I gather that students are going to lectures remotely. So,
Yes,
do
since
many of
March.
them? Okay, so since March. So therefore, do you think that a fair number of them have like a laptop or some sort of device that maybe they can probably connect probably
Yeah.
through like some sort of wireless connection that is not sorted based on their mobile subscriptions?
Well, the ideal number would be 100% have the device as well as a solid broadband connection.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But of course, nobody gets to that ideal.
mm-hmm.
But my sense with my class is that most of the students have the required access to the required infrastructure. So they have, their laptop or most of them have a laptop, I think, or a tablet, and I think many of them have, service from one of our three major internet service providers, which would be Digicel, Liberty, and TSTT. But of course, there are always a few. And at the beginning, I think UE kind of did a hunt for laptops and desktops, which we loaned, I believe, through the library to students who did not have.
Okay.
So, I think UE has done a good job. We've tried to do right by our students. We extended the semester, we changed the exam format. So I don't think students were terrifically disadvantaged.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. In mentioning the three providers, Digicel, Liberty, and TSTT, I guess that at least sounds good in terms of their, it certainly is more than one provider, more than two providers, when sometimes you may tend to have, duopolies and so on being established. But do you think that, at least in your opinion, do you think the competition between them and the impact of the market is good, sufficiently robust competition exists?
Well, I go back to a time when a T1 circuit, because remember I used to run some internet service providers on my own internet.
Right.
So a T1 circuit from TSTT, which at that point was a monopoly provider, was $230,000 TT a month.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and T1 is 1.54 megabits per second.
Right.
So we can now get a residential fiber rate. So I paid Digicel about 299 TT dollars a month for 100 megabits per second.
Right.
And I believe for that they throw in about 20 TV channels as well.
Right.
I was swapping notes with one of my kids in Canada, and I pay about 50 Canadian for 25 gigabytes of data per month.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter pays the same amount for 2 gigabytes of data.
Wow. Wow.
So Chinese like to complain, but compared with a lot of other places, we're not too badly off. A lot of our infrastructure is new, so Digicel kind of roll out their fiber network starting in about late 2015, early 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And Neil and Massey, they thought it would be a good idea to get into telecommunications. So they built out their fiber network, but they discovered how massively capital intensive
Yes.
telecoms were. So they
Yes.
sold that network to TSTT, who has rebranded it Amplia.
Okay.
Okay. I guess TSTT thought it would be cheaper to buy a brand new fiber network than to upgrade their network. And then Flow, who's been around for a while, well, Liberty, they had their cable network, which has been in the ground for a decade and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Digicel did a blitzkrieg here when they launched, so I think Flow realized they very quickly had to up their game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I
Okay.
think we have a lot of good infrastructure. On the wireless side, we have LTE, just TSTT and Digicel. There's a third license which nobody seems to have taken up. I don't know if they will. And I caught a story somewhere in the papers that TSTT is doing like a little 5G pilot in a very limited area for an industrial park or something.
Yes. Yes. I saw that in the paper.
So I would say, from an accessibility standpoint, Trinidad and Tobago is in a pretty good place for the majority of the population. Most of our infrastructure is quite new, and our prices are, well. I know you study this quite a bit more than I do, but I think our prices are quite decent.
Indeed. Indeed. Okay, so let's just step back a little bit from Trinidad and Tobago and talk about the Computer Society, Trinidad and Tobago Computer Society, TTCS.
Yeah.
So probably just give us a sense as to what it's about and probably what might be some of the issues that you think are burning that the society is giving attention to these days.
Okay. Well, I think this is and I think the society has been around for more than 2 decades.
Yes, yes.
Like many of these societies, it started as a bunch of enthusiasts who would, get together on a weekly or monthly basis with their new hardware and try out new software, etc. And in the early days, a way to share information. Of course, now with the internet and YouTube and what have you, the computer enthusiast can get a ton of stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
So recently we have been trying to shift our focus, and our big project right now is on refurbishing old computers, desktop and laptops, with a view to kind of getting them into the hands of families and children who don't actually have the necessary devices.
Right.
So I think as of the end of 2020, we probably just over 200 devices we refurbished in conjunction with the NGO in the south of the island, Restore a Sense of ICANN. So we have machines donated from corporate citizens, and we fix them up. We put in solid state drives. We install Windows 10, um, and of course, the schools can get them activated through a license through the Ministry of Education. Ministry of Education. So that's what we're working on, and I think we will continue to do so into 2021. We have a plan. We still have to execute on it to really kind of reach out to the corporates to have them donate their old machines to us, because a lot corporate class machines are pretty solid. The Dell Optiplexes and the HPs and the Lenovo's. So once you put in a solid state drive, even into a 10-year-old machine, it works well.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're working on that, and you can find out a lot more about that project on our website, ttcs.tt.
Wonderful. Okay, so I guess jumping back into the ICT and tech space in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think you had said that at least with COVID-19 and people beginning to realize how much one probably needs to leverage the internet more so than they had before.
Yeah.
How well or to what degree do you think that the government and the private sector in Trinidad and Tobago have been leveraging ICT?
Well, let me kind of put it this way. I've been teaching a class on campus called Intro to E-commerce since about 2001.
Wow.
Okay, and I'm on record in certain places. I have seen more innovation and activity in 2020 than I saw all the way back to 2001.
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of it, and particularly on the corporate side, a lot of it is kind of, very quick and dirty, using widely available cheap technologies. So, for example, True Value, one of our large supermarket chains, you can WhatsApp them your order,
Right.
and they will pick and pack it, and you just go in and collect it.
Right.
I think PriceSmart and Massey allowed for big supermarket chains also started offering online ordering. And a lot of small entrepreneurs kind of put together fruit and veg baskets, and they marketed those through Facebook. Yeah, so a lot of stuff being marketed through Facebook. So, you could put in your order for a basket of fresh fruit and vegetables delivered every week, or, fish or what have you. And those were basically, very, very small operations. So, the business community tried a lot of things very, very quickly, because it was either that or perish. The government, there are pockets within the civil service that are trying.
Yes.
So I can pay my taxes online. I can book a ferry ticket to Tobago online. But for the most part, the public sector is a laggard, and it shows up in these global ICT competitiveness type studies. I think the last one I saw was from a consumer point of view. Trini consumers were in the top 40 in the world. Our businesses were kind of down in the 80s or 90s or somewhere down there. And our government was all the way down in the 120s, 130s or whatnot.
Wow.
But I haven't seen those. And, Trini is perhaps, like people everywhere else, we like the latest shiny new thing. And, whatever new app comes out, we're going to try it. And online shopping is huge here, to the point where the Minister of Finance has identified it as a major kind of drain on our foreign exchange reserves.
Yes.
And local businesses in 2019 really innovated a lot, through things like WhatsApp their websites and Facebook and whatnot. So they very quickly transitioned to using their various platforms as a marketing channel. And Trinis, of course, also the consumers transition very quickly to living online. The government, as I said, does things much more slowly. So while within the public sector there are some encouraging signs. So paying taxes online, booking ferry tickets. For the most part, the government moves a lot more slowly than everybody else. But there's a recent plan to kind of turn Trinidad and Tobago into a digital nation. I guess everybody has these plans.
Yes.
We have to see how the implementation works out.
Mm-hmm. Do you know
Okay.
if any like plan has been shared as yet, or any sort of framework for that digital nation?
No, I'm not aware, but this is fairly recent, and I think they've hired a kind of a digital transformations, I believe, from TSTT.
Okay, all right
But
then.
I would have to check mine. So this is yet another plan to transform us into a digital nation. But I think we transformed into a digital nation back in March.
Right. Yes, yes, yes.
So I think the real kind of pocket of resistance is within the public sector.
Right,
For
right, right.
for too many things we still have to do. A journey into Port of Spain or San Fernando or Rima
Mm-hmm.
to renew a passport or renew a driver's permit or conduct any other government business.
Right.
So I think the consumers have made the migration, and I think businesses made a very quick hop with perhaps not the most appropriate platforms, but hopefully the business culture will change, and people will realize, hey, we can do business online.
Yes, yes.
And then they will kind of invest in the platforms and security needed to continue using online as a major channel.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So yes, yes. And in mentioning about the fact that probably a number of businesses started last year, probably the impetus being the pandemic and all of the changes that happened almost overnight. What are your thoughts about what it's like to be an entrepreneur in Trinidad and Tobago? Is it easy to start a business? Do you get the requisite support? Is there a nurturing community in terms of startups? So what are your thoughts?
I'm a lot less familiar with this. I've heard horror stories of government bureaucracy,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially if you need permits.
Okay.
Okay, I've heard that can be a nightmare, and I believe that has been identified time and time again. But what I notice is a lot of young people, in particular, are basically starting their own thing and using, Facebook and Instagram as their platforms, and of course YouTube. So they bypass the public sector.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So people are, some young people are trying to become influencers. As I said, some folks are kind of saying, okay, there's an opportunity in the market, so I can go buy, fruit and vegetables in bulk from a farmer and then package it out attractively and deliver to neighborhoods around the country. Some people have started up messaging services, distribution, um, like a little local FedEx,
Right.
where they will kind of fill the gap between the seller and the consumer.
Understood. So for you
Okay.
who have been lectured in e-commerce for since 2001.
Yeah.
How easy is it for, electronic payments and electronic transactions in terms of, the actual payment for goods and services to happen online in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, that was always a difficulty in that our banks were very conservative and were not enthusiastic on providing card not present services. So you could get a terminal if you ran a store in a mall somewhere, you could get that merchant account. But if you wanted to take, online transactions through a website, that was much more difficult. A lot of people do card service international, I think out of Bermuda. You see them kind of handling the payment processing, especially for the bigger companies. And now recently there's WePay, that is a Trinidadian company that is attempting to kind of fill that gap in online payments. But also, all the banks have online platforms, and they've had online platforms for quite a while. But starting, I guess, again in March 2020, people became a lot more willing to just do transfers from one bank account to another. So, if I had to pay a bill or give some money to a friend, I would just log on to my First Citizens Bank, put in their bank account, put in the dollar amount, and just press, send.
Mm-hmm.
So that too is a payment platform. So again, like everything else, we are kind of repurposing things, and the payment situation, the online payment situation, is not as bad as it used to be. Okay.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's getting better.
Okay.
Okay. But WePay says they're probably going to move out of Trinidad, so they might move up to they might move up to Jamaica.
Well, they're already in Jamaica, so I'm not quite sure when they say move out of Trinidad what that means.
I guess their corporate headquarters and their
Ah,
legal entity. They said development will still be done in Trinidad, but either Barbados or Jamaica, I believe, will
okay.
become their corporate domicile.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So, as we begin to wind down the discussion, what might be some of the tech related trends or tech related business trends you might be seeing in Trinidad and Tobago these days?
Well, we have a huge issue. I don't know if you picked up on it, but I think sometime about 3-4 weeks ago, there was a fiber outage
Yes,
in the
yes.
Southern Caribbean. In fact, there were two fiber breaks. The first one, no one noticed, I think near Martinique. And I think they took about, that was subsea. So they took about 5 to 6 days to get a repair going.
Mm-hmm.
But no one noticed that one because all the traffic failed over to a submarine cable running westwards towards
Curacao.
Curacao.
Yes, yes.
But then apparently there were some problems in Curacao with the electricity supply, and that took down the second route out, and then whatever was left was nowhere near enough to handle the volume of traffic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So Trinidadians nearly lost their collective minds, not being able to, WhatsApp and Facebook and Instagram and do anything.
Right.
And, that should really be a wake up call to all the regional governments, in that we are connected to the world via some very thin cables that can be damaged at any time.
Yes.
And if they're a couple 100 feet below the surface, it takes a while to get them fixed. So if that break in Curacao had been offshore, we might have been offline for a couple of days.
Yes, yes.
And I started thinking about it. We can repurpose the term Internet of Things, just flip it on its head and call it things that assume the internet is available.
Mm.
And the amount of stuff that just stopped working is phenomenal. I mean, security systems, energy monitoring systems, smart TVs. And I pointed it out to a colleague. Most of our devices that we hold in our hand, a lot of the stuff going on that device is in fact in a cloud somewhere.
Right.
So Android runs on your phone, but all the stuff that makes Android useful and the stuff that Google hangs on to is in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Siri does very little on your phone.
Yes.
It captures the voice, and then all the voice recognition is done on an Apple data center somewhere. And I would not be surprised if some SCADA systems, some MRI machines, some CT scanners are also connected to the internet and kind of assume it will be there for them to work properly.
Mm-hmm.
And Microsoft has basically said that, Windows is going to become a cloud-based operating system.
Yes.
So, and this is a big problem because everything's moving into the cloud. UE, or St. Augustine campus moved its teaching and learning platform onto Amazon Web Services because the cost of upgrading our local infrastructure was, astronomical. I think we had to go from 800 simultaneous sessions to about 3,000 or 4,000 simultaneous sessions. And, the hardware and software to get to that was just too costly. So we just moved it to a data center in Ohio somewhere. So I think the governments really need to be concerned. But here's a problem. The telecommunications companies, the capital requirements to build out infrastructure are phenomenal. And, if you buy a plane, that plane will last you for 20, 30 years. But if you buy an LTE network, that's kind of, aging after 5 years.
Well, yes.
So, and you then have to start thinking about 5G. And by the time you've completed your 5G rollout, you got to think about what comes next.
Yes.
So, and of course, their revenues are flatlining, if not going down. So, how will they afford more redundant subsea cables between the islands and, of course, North America? And I think it might require some sort of public-private partnership where the governments put up some of the money as well. Because if we transform into a digital nation, that digital nation assumes and requires that a very robust telecommunications infrastructure exists.
Right.
Or otherwise, you're putting yourself at tremendous risk. So you would have thought 2 or 3 fiber connections would be enough, but we just had a little mini case study that it's not.
Right. Right.
And I see there's some volcanic activity in the Lesser Antilles.
Yes. Yes.
And the major north-south cables seem to run close to a volcano, Kikimjeni.
Yes. Yes.
Which has caused problems in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, why anybody would run their subsea cables next to a volcano?
And you're an active one at that.
Yeah, it's a big question. And in the case of Trinidad, I'm not sure about Jamaica, 100% of our fiber optic capacity runs down one valley into the sea. Doesn't matter which ISP you're with, it all goes down one road and one side of the road.
Yes, so if anything happened to the road, if anything happens at that landing station or landing point, Trinidad could be.
Everybody's offline. So you might think you're clever, kind of multi-homing with TSTT and Flow, TSTT and Digicel or whoever. You have two internet connections, but anything happens to that landing station or that fiber, and everybody's offline.
Yes.
So I think that's the $1 billion question. If we're truly serious about becoming digital societies, we have to spend the money to make sure that the platforms upon which these societies are built will be always available.
Well, this is it, and I think the whole issue of the actual robustness of our networks, and it's not necessarily just on island, because here it is that in the situation that occurred a few weeks ago, the on island connectivity might have been fantastic, but what was happening off island to actually connect Trinidad and Tobago and other Caribbean islands to the internet, that is where the challenges are and
And
can be.
the big computer trends are, of course, the Internet of Things, as well as cloud computing. It's Google and Amazon and IBM and Microsoft make a really compelling case for using their cloud infrastructure. And in fact, a lot of software vendors went from an on-premise model. You buy your software, you install it on your systems. And then they went from that to a cloud alternative, so you could have on-premise if you wanted to, or you could use our cloud. Now a lot of them are saying it's cloud only. All right. So if you are a company that is on version 10 of on-premise, and they're telling you version 11 will only be on cloud, that's fine if you're in the continental United States or up in Canada. But that must feel very uncomfortable if you are 1,000 miles south, connected for some, very little cables.
Yes. But what about with regard to like data centers? Because I think Trinidad at least has been one of the locations in which large data centers are being located. I think, is there one that is either a new one that is either being built or may have been recently completed? So I think there were a good few data centers in Trinidad at this point in time.
There's one I know of run by Fujitsu.
Right.
Okay. There might be one or two others, but define large. I mean, a large data center in Trinidad is not even a hall in 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 a Google complex.
True.
And really and truly, you want your data or your infrastructure to be running off of multiple of those data centers. So you don't want to be just on one. And you really can the local data centers compete in terms of economies of scale.
Yes.
Okay. So I think we may have a few, but not sure how many people are using them, what they're using them for. And I think, and that's Trinidad, if you're in Grenada, for example, and you're running off the Trinidadian data center, you still have that problem with that fiber optic cable.
Yes.
And, data centers are very energy intensive. So you see them kind of locate to areas where there's cheap energy and where it's also cool.
Yes.
I do not think that a data center in some of our smaller islands that don't have a couple trillion cubic feet of natural gas just bubbling away really makes sense, because, the electricity cost would be just too high.
Indeed.
All right. So that's kind of something that perhaps can be studied. So we say we want to be a digital society. Fair enough, no problem with that. But we got a wake up call Fortunately, it was just a few hours,
Yes, yes,
but
yes.
people started to panic.
Mm-hmm.
And my main worry is, my wife and I are here, but our kids are abroad, and this is how we communicate with them. We live on FaceTime
Yes.
and on our WhatsApp family chat group. So the thought of being kind of cut off from the kids was, that kind of made me very nervous.
Yes. Understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
So we got a little kind of rap on the knuckles, so we have to pay attention.
Okay. And as we close this discussion, at least for now,
Hmm.
what might be opportunities that you see in Trinidad and Tobago? Hopefully, the infrastructural challenges and vulnerabilities, as you have, expressed and explained, will be addressed. But what might be the opportunities, some of the tech and ICT related opportunities that you see in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, it's really the opportunity, I think, is one of culture.
Mm-hmm.
The infrastructure has been available and reasonably priced for a decade or more now. Okay? But it took an external shock for us to kind of realize we can use this a lot more intensively. So hopefully, when we get over the shock, the culture has permanently shifted where we continue to use the infrastructure. Okay, so we do more blended and online teaching. We do more online banking. We use the existing infrastructure for online payments. The government starts to make more and more services available online, and also perhaps teleworking, so that there's this not there we have a huge traffic problem in Trinidad where so many things are in Port of Spain. So we have 20, 30-kilometer traffic jams every weekday morning,
Wow.
basically stretching, halfway across the island, if not more. So if we can if the culture changes and, we say to ourselves, for 6 months, we work from home, the world didn't end. So maybe we can let people rotate uh, in and out of the office. So, not as many people have to spend 2 hours in traffic every morning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But when you mentioned culture, I was thinking of my mind immediately went to, like Carnival, and there's this sort of rich cultural heritage of Trinidad and Tobago. And,
Yeah,
by now, one would be hearing and in some of the new acts and the new songs that would be coming out for Carnival.
yeah.
So to what degree, or what might be happening on that front as it relates to, let's say, carnival and cultural activities in Trinidad and ICT?
Well, this is I believe, our first year of Trinidadians not having carnival
Mm,
in recorded history. So we might all have passed away by March. There's no historical precedent.
right.
Um, but again, the young folks are experimenting. So, people are launching their music, putting it up on YouTube. Some people are thinking about virtual concerts and virtual parties. So again, you tune into a YouTube stream and you party at home. Um, I'm an old schooler, so that doesn't work for me. But out of that, they might find something that does work, and then that becomes part of the norm going forward.
Right.
Okay, so what is that saying? I think crisis is another word for opportunity,
Yes, yes, yes.
something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard for societies to change, and sometimes you need an external knock to push you on to a different path.
Indeed.
So hopefully we stay on a different path when the vaccine has been rolled out and we've learned to live with this particular strain of virus. It is my deepest hope that we don't go back to what we were doing before or not doing.
Indeed. Indeed. And on that note, just thank you so much, Simon, for, chatting with us about Trinidad and Tobago and the ICT and tech scene there, because it is a culture and society that, is so rich. So many of us associate Trinidad with carnival, and certainly at this time of year, and with, oil and petroleum and the resources that it has at its disposal. And granted that, I certainly, for me, I recognize that Trinidad has good telecommunications infrastructure, and the prices or the services is pretty good and competitive relative to the rest of the region. At least it's good to be able to just do a deeper dive and get greater insight into what might be the experiences on the ground, albeit for just the short time that we have here chatting.
Sure,
So
no
just
problem. We are here, and anytime you want to give us a shout, the Trinidad and Tobago Society, Computer Society. We have people with various things that they're expert in, and who have various interests. So, and we like to talk.
as
So
as
yeah,
do many Caribbean people.
yeah. So just let Dev know, and he'll find somebody.
Okay then, thank you so much.
Okay. Real pleasure speaking with you, and keep up the good work.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the ICT Pulse podcast. You can find links to some of the things we talked about on our website, ict-pulse.com. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving us a review on iTunes, as it will help others find the show. You can email us at info@ict-pulse.com or drop us a note on our Facebook page, facebook.com/ICTPulse, or via Twitter @ICTPulse. We hope you'll join us again for our next episode. Take care.